Hi, so today I want to talk about humanity's deep future, human nature, potential alien nature, and how advanced civilizations might interact with one another in a deep future where we're all in space and stuff. So, what made me think about it was reading people, thinking about potential aliens and how they would act and behave, and comparing that to how we behaved in our past. So comparing human nature, taking examples from human history to try and predict and think how an advanced alien civilization might act. Now, to me, that is beyond stupid and silly. Of course, always, it's good to look at both sides, and I always try to do this, to be honest and fair, because I only care about the truth, nothing else. The best way to be correct, if you want to be right, is just figure out what's actually right, and just go by that. Then you don't need to pretend or be weird or whatever. If you're just looking for truth and you gather knowledge and think critically, then you will just have the truth. That's maybe a clumsy way of putting it, but it's kind of something similar. But anyway, so I think it's really silly to look at humanity's history, how we behaved, and extrapolating to the future how an advanced alien civilization might act. I just think that one really important thing is that people drastically underestimate the path that advanced civilizations seem to go. So let me just plainly and clearly try to say what I mean by that. So as we have advanced as a species, biologically and technologically, we become more unified. And what we try to do and what we want to do is to have expanded intelligence and expanded consciousness. And I think when people look towards the future and species that have the capability of traveling between stars or even galaxies, they really underestimate and don't put that piece in its necessary place of what might be the consequence of a vastly expanded consciousness and intelligence. It wouldn't be just, Star Wars and aliens fighting each other. That is laughably silly and simple. Even if there was some super advanced competition in space, let's say that, two advanced species are expanding, at some fraction of the speed of light, expanding in their bubbles, and at one point their bubbles meet. And so people think, oh, then they will fight for resources and whatever. If they have the capability to expand so far and to already have enormous amounts of materials, enormous amounts of energy, and obviously intelligence required to do all of that, and they meet, there will be no war. That is silly. Both of these entities, sides meeting, would be way more intelligent than we can imagine. Of course, there are scenarios where they wouldn't be super intelligent, where they could be dumb machines, but if you're talking about, actual, practical, and sort of what seems to be the most likely evolution is that artificial intelligence will get exponentially more intelligent and take over spacefaring. It won't be people in spaceships in space, it will be artificial intelligence systems building their own bodies and spacecraft and whatever, and expanding if they want to expand. That's another thing we can talk about. If species advance far enough and go inward because they see no point in, going out into the physical universe and expanding so much energy, when they could live in literally paradise, in their own simulated worlds, where they could experience literally anything they want. And again, this is a part where people vastly underestimate what a perfect world would be like, a perfect simulated world. Firstly, people think that we will remain the same somehow. But I can tell you one thing for certain. If we don't kill ourselves, then in the coming near and far future, we will not remain the same biologically, physically, and we will not remain the same mentally. And I think that's a really important thing that people don't think about. What might be the consequences of vastly expanded intelligence and consciousness? If we go deeper into space and choose to do that, of course you could live in a paradise and expand at the same time. You could be in a simulation but still in this spacecraft, whatever, flying around and expanding in space. So you wouldn't need to pick, but there could be some risk associated or whatever. Anyway, so these two civilizations would meet, let's say hypothetically. So war would be pointless and ridiculous because both of these entities, both of these sides could perfectly encapsulate the whole situation. Communication. If they are truly super advanced, which they would need to be for this space expanding, at least in this scenario we're talking about, if they really are super intelligent, there will be no barrier, there will be no difficulty in finding a common language, in a fraction of a second of communicating with each other in whatever electromagnetic waves or whatever they would use. They would figure it out in a millisecond of how to communicate perfectly with each other, and they would sort of if it really was the situation of both expanding, they would take count of all the sides, what they have. Most likely they would come to some sort of a compromise. This is also stupid, but they could at worst come to a compromise. Okay, we have this much energy. If we really wanted, we could take your energy. Let's say we have 70%, you have 30% of this space around this galaxy or whatever. But that is, again, I think a sort of how do you call it, a pitfall or a flaw in human thinking. Again, we're thinking in these caveman terms of conquering space and expanding outwards. So I always find that kind of stupid. What I really genuinely think would happen if these two hyper advanced civilizations would meet, collaboration. I think they would merge. In a similar way, of course, there are so many different paths that humanity could take, but one potential path that we see is already the path that we are on, which is more and more unity. Everything we have, all of this technology, is because we have become more unified and connected with each other. It would be impossible for me alone to create any of this. It would take me like 1,000 years for, thousands of years. It's collaboration, all thinking together. And, another flaw in human thinking is we think statically, because our brains have not evolved to live in a world that changes as quickly as our world is currently changing. So we think that the world is static, but the world is changing incredibly quickly. And what the hell was I talking about? That the world is changing incredibly quickly, and also thanks to the internet, we are becoming more and more unified, which makes more things possible. In the future, if we have brain-computer interfaces, and we might have brain-to-brain interfaces, so direct, flawless communication between minds would become possible. It's absolutely possible. There is nothing that says it cannot happen, and we already have ways of doing it. We just need to expand and develop a bit further. So the possibility of internet between minds, it wouldn't be some kind of a creepy thing. People don't understand. The thing about technology is that pretty much always in history, technology always moves in the direction of general human will. So if there is something gross or disgusting or bad, then we will not do it, as best as we can. And we're, relatively speaking, we're doing a somewhat decent job of it, of keeping the super horrible and gross things that we collectively as humanity decide we won't do those things. But if we have this ability to communicate brain to brain, and it would be flawless. And of course, no one would read your mind against your will, or no one would hack into your head. We would have, by that time, if we have this brain-to-brain communication technology, we would have artificial general intelligence, which would oversee, develop this technology, make sure that it's 100% safe and efficient, and that there is nothing to worry about. So, brain-to-brain communication, and that would unify us beyond what we can currently even imagine. Just the expanded consciousness is just really, 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 really crazy topic, but something that can be possible and can happen, and one possible path in our future. So, and about it, it is so much more beautiful, and it feels so much better to be connected and unified than alone and stupid and aggressive, you know. So, life on Earth grows, and we have these social groups, and we gather into small tribes, and then cities, and then we have, mailing and whatever, and then we have internet and stuff, and then we have global communication, and maybe species arise, and those species also unify cosmically into something unimaginably beautiful. So back to these, two civilizations meeting. That's one thing that might happen. I don't see aggression in the future. It always saddens me that people talking about these topics are often narrow-minded, that they have some idea, like a biologist speaks like a biologist, something from programmer speaks like a programmer. Interdisciplinary sort of open thinking is what is needed if you want to have any credibility in saying anything about the future. Then you need to be honest. You can't have your own biases of, this is what I see, this is what I want to happen, so this is what will happen. Like, no, we need to be honest and open. And I am absolutely open with that. Like, I have no idea. I am also dealing with just the information that we have and just the intuition of what being a human being is like, how our technology is evolving, and just making some assumptions from that. Another interesting point I think worth mentioning, and that people don't really talk about, is that, and I think this is truly profound and fascinating, that any intelligent aliens that we will meet, we will have always one thing in common with them, always, and that is conscious experience. No matter what aliens you meet, if they are intelligent and sensing the world around them, then consciousness, this feeling of being here and now, present in this moment, imagine no thoughts, nothing, that just you are here. That feeling of conscious experience would be the same for any aliens you meet. Different shapes and sizes, but still, shapes and sizes from the same ocean. We're all born from the universe. We're all made of stars. And we all share the same consciousness. There is something to it. Would be an understatement to say. So what I just wanted to say is, I think it's silly to, look at human history and say that, 500 years ago, that one dude took a ship to this island and, killed these native people and blah, blah, blah. That is human nature. And that means that civilizations, million years from now, they would do the same thing. That is so simple thinking. I cannot stand it. So if anything, if any of you are like following along with this super ranty video, if you think about the future and what, advanced aliens might do, what we as advanced life forms might do, try to open your mind more and be more imaginative in how a vastly more expanded intelligence and consciousness might act in the universe, and what its motivations and wants might be in the world. I think it is possible that once we develop far enough to create, perfect simulations, we might turn inward and experience an amazing world in a virtual world, which could feel more real than reality if our consciousness is expanded. It's a crazy, crazy, crazy topic to think about and talk about. I just find it fun and interesting. It's just some things, that I wanted to say, and it's interesting that things that just take, would have taken a minute to say, it took me like 15 minutes to say. But I hope you get what I'm saying. I think it's interesting to think about. It is a fascinating question why we haven't seen any aliens. There are so many different hypotheses for that. I would say one possibility that I would propose is simply that we have just woken up. We are very early in our development. We just opened the door, walked outside, looked around for a second. And, I think it's way too early to say that we haven't seen anything. Oh, there's no one here, But at the same time, of course, we look around and we don't see massive megastructures. We just see space, vast, endless, stars, galaxies. Nothing changed, completely natural. We don't see some weird, unexplained, expanding spheres. No. So, also, both sides, two sides. So, these are just some of my thoughts on that, a ranty kind of video, but I hope there was something interesting here for you. If you have any thoughts, please share them in the comments, and of course, thank you so much for watching, and take care.